Let me know. Good morning and afternoon, depending on where you are. This is Coreina calling in from Rocky Mountain Institute, hosting this webinar. Also doing a little test of audio on our side as I do this and as we wait for folks to log in. We have around half of our expected attendees on the line now, and we're going to be waiting a few minutes. And we'll be starting at 11:05 just to let folks dial in. So if you want to take a bio break, grab a coffee or tea to enjoy the webinar, this is a good time. It's a 60-second warning for those of you who may be on bio break and I'm on speaker. We'll be starting at 11:05. Thank you. All right, let's begin. Welcome everyone to eLab Accelerator 2018. We are extremely excited to be kicking off this event that's going to be happening in 2 weeks today here on the call with us. So we're going to be in a beautiful place in about 2 weeks. We cannot wait to show up and see you at Sundance. What we're doing on this call right now is to provide some overview of eLab Accelerator. What is it? How is it organized? How is it going to help support your team? We'd like to do a brief introduction of the teams we'll be supporting this year, all 13. We will provide an overview of what will be required for preparation so you can make the most of your time together, and then immediate next steps. Now all of you who are on the call with us now know that you're on mute so that we don't get any feedback issues. There's a hand raise function on this GoToWebinar interface, and we've already had some folks raise their hands, so we know that's working. The idea is raise your hands, insert questions, and type them in as we go, and we'll see them on our screen here. I would say tech is not perfect, so there may be some delays. Please do be patient with us as we, monitor a few things like the slides that we have going on and the questions on a different screen. But we're very excited. So maybe we can go to the next slide. Maybe we can. Here we go. Okay. Thanks. So the first thing I want to do is introduce you to our core team. So we'll have over 100 participants at Accelerator and quite a large RMI staff to support. And we are all thrilled to be able to support your team and your problem statement as you move forward. We believe that all you guys are doing things that, if you succeed, could fundamentally change how parts of the electricity industry are transitioned. And so we're thrilled. This is a little preview to get you guys used to our faces so you know us in person and are able to recognize us, stop us, and ask us questions or ask for help if you need. Upper left-hand corner is James Newcomb. He's our Managing Director of our Electricity Practice, and he's one of the founders of our Electricity Innovation Lab. Second photo, that's a photo of me that looks like I was in the 3rd grade, but it was just a couple of years ago. That hair. I lead our Electricity Innovation Lab and our team here focused on eLab. To my right on the photo is Jason Meyer. He will actually be on paternity leave, but many of you have corresponded with him individually as you prepare for your team. So just want to give you a sense of our sort of behind-the-scenes team. On the right, Margaret McCall. And she is our project manager for Accelerator. Below her, Sherri. She'll be next year's project manager, so you'll see her as well. Alex Engel. He is primarily our faculty coordinator, so we have a few faculty we'll introduce who they are and how they'll be supporting your team. Alex is sort of the traffic control for our faculty. Jill McCarran and Elizabeth Pennington are our esteemed and wonderful partners from Rios Partners who will be helping to facilitate the event. And then Jessica Badger and Lauren Black will be in charge of logistics. The main way to think about this is that everyone here is on this picture is our mission is to support you. Everyone on the right half is sort of more behind the scenes, a lot of the work leading up to. Once you get to the event, the folks on your left are the people you want to talk to if you have a question about your time here, about the agenda, logistics. So that's James, Coreina, Joe, Elizabeth, Jessica, Lauren, and then again, Alex, if you have a question about faculty. So right-hand side, behind the scenes, left-hand side, at the event, your folks to turn to. Next slide, please. So we know that some of you are new to eLab and some of you are returning. So I want to give a little introduction about what Electricity Innovation Lab is and why it is that we feel eLab Accelerator is pivotal to the transformation of the electricity sector. So Electricity Innovation Lab, eLab for short, this is our way of bringing people together. So the very people who will be making decisions about and operating and interfacing with the grid of the future to actually create frameworks for, test, and create new solutions for that grid. The idea is that the Innovation Lab exists in order to bring people together to conceive of, design, and test the new solutions required to transition the grid of the future. Many of you know us, or many of our network primarily know us through two main events that we run each year, each intended to drive innovation in different ways. Summit, which is often topically focused, and eLab Accelerator, which is focused on team-based progress throughout the nation. Next slide. eLab is designed to solve the most pressing and timely electricity questions that couldn't be solved otherwise. And why do I say that? Bringing people together, working collaboratively, we never call that a shortcut. It's not the most efficient way to work. The idea is that we do that because we are in a point in the transition of the electricity sector where it's pivotal, required that we come together. Why is it pivotal? We're facing opportunities and challenges that we've never faced before, and no single person or organization holds all the information or resources on their own. So eLab is rigged to empower its participants, you guys, to design, regulate, operate, and enable the grid of the future. We kind of think of eLab as generating three kinds of products. The first is ideas. So we convene people to develop frameworks for thinking about, making decisions about, navigating risks and opportunities of the future. The second is tests and pilots. So once we have those ideas, what are those pivotal first tests and proof points that are required to actually continue to evolve a solution? And then third, our third product is you guys, essentially. We are welcoming you into eLab because you have a track record of being a change agent. We'd like for you to leave the Accelerator event feeling like you have greater capacity to work with your allies and potentially even competitors and counterparties more effectively. Pass the next slide on to Sherri.
Thanks so much, Coreina. So now that we've talked a little bit about eLab, what is Accelerator? We have two primary objectives for eLab Accelerator. The first is to critically advance 12 projects, this year there are actually 13 teams, that have the potential for transforming the electricity system. And the second is to grow the capacity of individuals and teams to succeed in their project goals. We hope that teams will leave having materially advanced their project to the next level, supported by three things. The first is an enhanced perspective on the opportunities and challenges they will encounter in the project once they return home. The second is an increased capability to address problems with a creative, participative, and systemic approach, which Coreina will talk more about in a minute. And the third is a support network of experts and practitioners that they can leverage as they advance their work. And that includes their own team members, the team members working on different projects, RMI staff, as well as our expert faculty. Next slide. In terms of what Accelerator provides, the first is a structured working session to make progress on their project or initiative supported by RMI facilitators. The second is a rich learning experience featuring experts on the latest thinking around new utility business models and distributed resources in the U.S. electricity sector. We also provide tools and training to conceptualize problems in collaborative and innovative ways. Accelerator additionally provides new alliances to form a broader support network with other teams who are working on similar or parallel projects. And lastly, a unique environment conducive to creativity and breakthrough ideas. Slide. Pass it back to Coreina now.
Oh, thanks. I was on mute there. Thanks, Sherri. So we've just provided some comments from our eLab participants in the past. So every few years, we'll do a survey and ask folks what it is that they have benefited from in eLab. How can we be better? What's your feedback for us on the Accelerator event? So just some quotes and direct perspectives from folks who've been there in the past. And I guess, the idea is that you guys are championing and doing your work. What we provide is content expertise. We bring a network of faculty to help you, and we provide a container, a framework, and a process to facilitate your work. In the name Accelerator, we are trying to speed your work. So knowing that it can be difficult, challenging to work through many tough questions together as a group, how can we provide, and that's sort of our charge is to provide the facilitation to enable that to go as quickly as possible, as productively as possible. Now, the way that we think about that, our method for Accelerator, is we think about what's required to address complex problems. And all 13 teams coming this year are addressing complex problems. And when I say that, what I mean by that is we think about complexity on 3 levels. And we'll hear more about this at the event. We've, done quite a bit of thinking about this with our partners, Rio's partners. On one end, dynamic complexity, on another, social complexity, and then third, generative complexity. I'm going to say a few words about this because it basically forms the foundation for why we have structured Accelerator the way that we have. By dynamic complexity, what I'm saying is we are observing that many of the challenges we face today in our energy system are actually accumulations of very long-standing and potentially even seemingly distant, either cultural, economic, business-related, financial, and other influences. By dynamic complexity, what I'm saying is when the driving cause of a problematic solution is far removed in space or time from the effects, we have dynamic complexity. So climate change, financial crises, even regional conflicts. The causes of these challenges can stem from a region on the other side of the planet or from a moment in time long ago. The effects in the future can be unclear. So our approach for working on dynamic complexity is to take a systems or whole systems approach, and you'll hear us saying that during the course of the event, meaning that only by looking from the perspective of different voices throughout the system can we sort of, quote, reveal the underlying causes of distinct events, which is required for us to sort of untangle a lot of the problems and barriers and challenges we face. Now, social complexity on top of that is when the system is complex, not only do we have a sort of multidimensional system, but social complexity occurs when there are many stakeholders required to address that problem effectively, and those many actors have very diverse perspectives and needs. eLab Accelerator is designed, predicated on the value that it is essential to include the voices and abilities of diverse stakeholders, and we think that for many reasons. On one hand, the more stakeholders own the plan and ideas for progressive action, the less resistance those ideas will face when they are developed and implemented. But on top of that, it's not just about greasing the wheels or PR or having buy-in. Simply, the solution is more resilient, more clever, more creative, and more useful if a more diverse stakeholder team provides greater depth and breadth of insight. And I'll add there that it's often the minority voices. For example, those who are typically thought of less powerful or potentially not wanting or needing to provide input that may otherwise hold the missing key to effective and collective action. And this approach of including a diversity of stakeholders we call participative, collaborative, or multi-stakeholder. Finally, generative complexity. What do we mean by that? We mean that the future is both unfamiliar and undetermined. So for all the problem statements and opportunities that teams are facing this year, you'll see there are no pre-existing solutions. It's not like you can just, Google the best practice and find out how they did it and exactly replicate it in your region. Because we need to forge a response as we go, because it's often the first time we are dealing with a question or opportunity like this. So therefore, we can't replicate, we have to create, or in this sense, co-create an experimental approach. One thing I'll say that you may hear us say is that in experimenting, you can't, in a situation where you don't, where the solution's unclear, you can't necessarily plan your way to success. Often you may need to test your way to success. And you'll see that some of the teams who are coming here are doing just that. They're piloting and designing tests. So next slide. So with those three kinds of complexities, no surprise, our goal is to create a container where we're looking at the full system and thinking about a systems-related process. So how is our process going to help you think about the full system with the diverse voices who are needed while simultaneously recognizing those voices who are missing? You know, we've only allowed a maximum of 8 people in each team. Who's missing? And how do we fold their voices in subsequently? And then capacity building. We aim to bring faculty who can help you both in terms of topically, but also in your approach as you try to make change when you go home. We work in different modes, and you'll see us switching throughout the agenda into different modalities. First, you'll often be with your team working and having a working session. And in those cases, you will be facilitated by a single, sometimes double, 2 RMI facilitators. Second, in critical moments, we will bring teams together so that they can exchange ideas. And you'll see that there's some overlap between teams, and our hope is that you'll be eager to learn from the other teams and eager to share. And the third, like I mentioned, topical training with our faculty. Next slide. This is the money slide. Welcome to the 13 teams that we have invited and accepted to Accelerator. It was extremely competitive getting in this year. We've been very excited about that. It was very, very hard to make decisions. We had very compelling problem statements, compelling champions. And here I'll just give a very brief overview of each team. And I'm being brief here because the most important thing is to hear the problem statements as they're stated by the champions themselves, which you'll hear at the event itself. So I'll do my best to provide just a very quick overview. So the first, maybe I can provide some organization to this list so you can begin thinking about how they relate to each other. The first 4 or so projects that we have listed here are focused on developing a new way of thinking about business models for utilities, and also about how those utilities can test ways of integrating distributed energy resources for the benefit of their customer base, and also thinking about how their utility grows and evolves as they move forward. The first, developing projects to support the future grid, championed by Citizens Utility Board, and ComEd, Commonwealth Edison. They're broadly focused on questions surrounding the development of 4 pilots focused on energy efficiency, electrification and storage, rate design, performance-based approaches. The second team, PGE TestBed, no surprise, championed by Portland General Electric, broadly focused on how to think about and design 3 testbed sites that maximize the benefits of demand response. And if you are a team champion or on the team, and you're hearing me describe your project again, I'm being as general as possible. I know that problem statements are being formed even as we speak with facilitators, and so encourage you to find the words and succinct messages that you can share with others as we get more pinpointed and accurate. A third team, testing smart load growth through enhanced EV readiness. So this is a team that is championed by Center for Energy and Environment. They are focused in Minnesota, primarily on questions around what are the education and customer engagement levers that are going to help maximize EV adoption. Team number 4, Juneau Renewable Heating, championed by Alaska Electric Light and Power, seeking to understand how the utility and the city of Juneau can partner to identify those innovative business models and solutions that will enable the scaling of electrification, specifically replacing the use of petroleum for thermal loads. As we move further down on this list, you'll see that the next set of teams are also looking to potentially pilot or create a new or test their way towards new partnerships. And these are focused primarily on low and moderate income issues. And I should add that the first team, Cub and ComEd, are also focused, their pilots are also focused on low and moderate income, serving low and moderate income communities. So team number 6.
I think, did you skip West Oakland?
Thanks. West Oakland Renewable Power. This championed by community-based organizations, WARP, and Environmental Defense Fund. Primarily focused on questions of how to create a community-owned industrial-scale rooftop solar generation and storage facility that will provide ongoing revenue and other benefits to the community in partnership with local warehouse developers. Next team, team number 6, North Minneapolis Microgrid Project, championed by Renewable Energy Partners. And this team is focused primarily on understanding how they can design and implement a distributed solar energy microgrid in a Promise Zone neighborhood, so a racially diverse federal Promise Zone neighborhood in partnership with their utility, Xcel. Next team, number 7, Southwest LA Health and Equity Preferred Resources Pilot. This is a team being championed by PSE Healthy Energy, primarily focused on how to create local distributed energy resource or sort of non-wires alternatives that provide benefits to communities beyond reduced energy costs. So looking at other metrics like job creation and other benefits and revenues that can flow to the community in partnership with LADWP. Team number 8, Overcoming Challenges to Renter Energy Equity, championed by Energy Foundation. This team is recognizing the potential implications of changing utility rates around the country, specifically around time of use. So they are looking at what are those strategies that will be required to protect low-income renters from future utility rate design. And not just thinking defense, but what are those solutions potentially look like, and what are those utility rate design solutions that they can consider. Team number 9, Virtual Power Plants. Championed by GridLab. GridLab is seeking to understand how they can develop a framework that can be used by utilities and others, primarily to think about, design, and put together portfolios of clean power demand response storage. So essentially virtual power plants that can replace energy and capacity from combined cycle plants. Team number 10, Strategically Growing New Mexico Renewables. Championed by PNM, primarily focused on the question of if we're getting to beyond 30% renewable energy, what does that look like beyond just thinking about generation? They are primarily focused on solutions to properly value the full portfolio of resources and market interactions required to expand renewable energy. Team number 11, Grid Optimal Initiative, Rating Building Grid Interactions. Championed by New Buildings Institute. This team is looking at the tools and potential metrics that would enable building level grid citizenship. So indicate, signal, and incent buildings to then the building the set of players in the building industry to get their buildings grid ready. Mm-hmm. Team number 12, Rural Non-Wired Alternative Resiliency Project, championed by Southern Company. And this team is looking to understand what is the regulatory pathway towards thinking about non-wired alternatives to serve isolated communities who currently live outside Southern's subsidiary utility distributed grid network. And last but not least, team number 13, Military Energy Resilience Catalyst. This is a team that is championed by Converge Strategies, bringing together parts of the military, Navy, Army, Air Force, and Secretary of Defense to think about how they can speed and improve internal innovation in the military to take their sort of bright, shining examples that they already have for resilience projects and accelerating deployment of similar projects across DoD.
Great.
So long intros, again, if you like the way I described your team, wonderful. If it's a little off the mark, we cannot wait to hear you voice your own problem statements. I know that my individual facilitators are on it and have been talking with you, and so it's just a matter of how I'm communicating them. Next slide is our faculty. And so this is our list. So as you know, we are stocking the room with RMI facilitators, and many of our facilitators have vast content expertise. In addition to that, what we have are what we call floating faculty. And we have, I believe, 11 this year. These are them. They have been briefed on your projects and continue to be so. And they have agreed to come to Accelerator because they're excited about your teams. And they are available to assist your teams and coach. And how that often happens, and you'll see that as the event unfolds, is that as your facilitator sees a need or opportunity to bring faculty member on, they will essentially signal or call out for help and we have Alex Engel on our team is going to serve as sort of faculty dispatch, and these faculty members will be available to help you guys think through your options. Next slide. Can I hand this off to Sherri?
Yes, you can. So a brief overview of the overall Accelerator agenda, just in large, broad strokes. The meeting will begin at 2 p.m. sharp on Tuesday, and that afternoon is spent particularly orienting us to the process and introductions both amongst your specific team and more broadly, as well as an understanding of the agenda and ground rules, as well as the approach to problem solving and the approach to accelerating that we will be using over the next few days. Dinner that night will be what we sometimes call lightly facilitated in an effort to encourage folks to get to know as many people as they can and make as many connections as they're able to while at Accelerator. Wednesday, my apologies, you can ignore the first line of this agenda. That's not relevant for you. The bulk of the time on Wednesday is spent in team work sessions, and in the morning, particularly getting a deep understanding of the current system and the problems you're trying to solve. There will also be topical learning sessions presented by faculty and in conversation with faculty and potentially some RMI staff as well. And in the afternoon, there's more team time as well as additional learning sessions. Thursday is spent in team work sessions, and then we'll take an intentional pause as you're in the midst of ideas and progress to pause, connect with another team, present your current thinking and your current questions. It's an opportunity to get some feedback from both another team and some faculty member before incorporating that into your afternoon's work and iterating on your ideas again. Tuesday afternoon will be a shift into further project planning, and then on Friday in team work time, a focus on action planning with the opportunity for cross-team presentation as well as offers and support and commitments from team members as well as other folks at Accelerator who are interested in offering something to your project going forward. We can advance to the next slide. It's possible that there's a lag. Are we able to advance to the next slide?
Oh, it's not showing up on mine.
Sherri, I think there is a lag. Hang on while we try to fix it.
Oh, it could be there's a lag on my end. just a second. Thank you for bearing with us.
So we should be on slide 15. That's what should be displayed. Uh-oh. Technical glitch. I did send it out as a handout to everybody. If this is not working, there's a PDF handout. I'm not sure that shows up on attendee screens. Oh, here we go. Let's pause. There we go.
Oh, thank you. Great. So some of the following slides will not be new information. I know that the vast bulk of teams have been working very closely with their facilitators over the last set of weeks. But each team at Accelerator has a dedicated RMI facilitator, in some cases 2 facilitators. And the role of the facilitator is to finalize the project scope and the project team leading up to Accelerator, as well as preparing the project team to really be able to hit the ground running and be there to solve the same problem while they're at Accelerator. While at Accelerator, the facilitator will be guiding the work of the team and stepping the team through some specific conversations and activities that we think will be helpful in meeting your project objectives. And we will also be available in some specific ways to be able to support the project after Accelerator. Slide. Great. In our experience, there are a couple of ground rules that really help to create the most productive atmosphere. And so we invite folks to be present while they're at Accelerator, and that means to not be on their phones or laptops during any of the sessions or meetings. We understand that sometimes things come up and you might have to take a brief call, and we ask that if you're doing that, you step outside of the room that the meeting is happening in. The second is to be open to what might come, and you may find that some of the potential ideas and solutions that rise up at Accelerator are not the ones that you had imagined. You might have an idea of what the solution to your problem is right now, and we invite you to be open to other possibilities. And the third is to challenge assumptions, your own and others. So to really enter the space from a curious and productive point of view. We can move to the next slide. And just a note about the communication guidelines and rules. Some of you will have seen this in your registration as well. We ask that eLab participants follow what we sometimes call eLab rules or modified Chatham House rules. And broadly speaking, this means you can say who was there, you can say who said what, but you can't say, for example, Coreina Chan said this really insane thing about utilities or what have you. And the idea is that it allows people to try on ideas in a safe space without worry that they will be tweeted or quoted in an article. And if after Accelerator or during Accelerator you want to share that particular idea that Coreina had about utilities or your team member had about whatever, we ask that you get their permission prior to publishing that or sharing that outside. And you can see some particular details around that as well. We can move on, thank you. So the role of the facilitator prior to Accelerator, again, I imagine that most of you are deeply working with your facilitators at this point, but first to work with the team to refine and finalize the project's scope and objectives in advance of arriving at Accelerator, and to work with the team champion to finalize the individual team participants. The vast bulk of the teams have finalized, and I know that there are a few final seats that are getting confirmed today, more or less. The next is to help identify any necessary prep work or material in support of the project. What are things that the team members should know and be familiar with and be able to speak coherently about in advance of arriving? Is there a project proposal or a business model diagram or something along those lines that is helpful for folks to read on the plane over, for example? The facilitator will also be developing a personalized agenda for each of the team time sessions during the 4 days. And the facilitator will lead team-based communications and gather the team information for the website, which again, I know most of you have already sent in. We can move on to the next slide. Great. Items needed in advance of Accelerator, a quick checklist, again, that most of you have already done all of these, but a finalized project scope and objectives in conjunction with your facilitator, a finalized team, the both team name and project information for the Accelerator website. So this is things that are more public facing and you're comfortable being on a website. Facilitator calls, certainly ongoing calls with the team champion, as well as a call with the entire team and the facilitator. And lastly, individual registration. Next slide. Just a quick note about logistics. The registration fee covers room and board at Sundance Resort for Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday nights, as well as meals over the course of the event, as well as transportation to and from Sundance for Tuesday arrivals and Friday departures. Participants are responsible for their transportation to Salt Lake City Airport. We encourage participants to arrive well in advance of that 2 p.m. Tuesday start time. And we expect that Accelerator will finish around 12:30 on Friday. Box lunches will be provided, and we recommend that departure flights leave no earlier than 3 p.m. from Salt Lake City. For ground transportation, shuttles or specific Lyft and Uber codes will be provided to and from the Salt Lake City Airport and Sundance. We'll mention in a later slide that it's crucial that you be in touch with our logistics folks, that's Black Badger, to ensure that they have all of your flight information so that we are able to provide that transportation for you. And lastly, just a couple other logistics notes. The dress code is truly casual. Most of the RMI and hosting team will likely be in jeans. And we invite you to bring attire that's appropriate for a seasonal mountain climate. That means layers, sturdy shoes, etc. Last I checked, yesterday Sundance was snowing, but a week from yesterday it was going to be 70 degrees and sunny. So you can place your bets on what you think the weather will be like when we're there in a few weeks, but know that it's a wide range of possibilities. And lastly, on this note, Sundance is at over 6,000 feet of elevation, so we recommend that you hydrate, maybe don't do any extreme exercise on the first day that you arrive, and you let yourself adjust to that altitude if you're not used to it. Next slide. You should all have registration information from your facilitator at this point. If you have not, if this is news to you and you haven't seen an Eventbrite, please do contact me at the email address there. After the Eventbrite registration, our event services company, Black Badger, that I mentioned, will follow up with an additional information form, and that includes your flight and travel details. It asks for a short bio and a picture for our participant handbook, and a few other things. Please do fill that out as soon as possible. I know that we have a lot of those in, and we're waiting on a few more. And as part of that registration, you're agreeing to the communications agreement that we just outlined. Next slide. Oh, that is the close of the webinar. Coreina, do you have any closing thoughts, or should we shift to any questions?
I think we'd love to hear any questions and be able to address any real time. I guess the one thing I will say is we are very excited about hosting your team. We are really enthusiastic about the teams, their makeup, all the folks who are coming. We believe in your ability to potentially change how energy is used and exchanged and distributed. And so we're very eager to work with you and support you. So let's see.
Not seeing any questions on the chat board, so I don't know if let's take maybe just a couple minutes for folks to submit questions, and in a couple minutes we'll see what we've got and run through some answers for you. Sounds good.
Great. So thanks to folks who submitted questions. This is Margaret McCall, the project manager for eLab Accelerator. So just to tackle these in the order that they came in, we've got a question about dietary needs for meals. There is an opportunity when you register and fill out both forms that give your travel details and other details. There's a question about dietary restrictions. So if you list what restrictions you have, we're happy to accommodate. If for some reason you haven't seen a spot to submit that information, please feel free to send it directly to Sherri and to Black Badger at the email addresses that were listed on in this presentation.
Parking arrangements?
We've got another question about making parking arrangements if you are driving in. I'll double check on this to be sure, but my understanding is that parking at Sundance is relatively straightforward. There's a parking lot on site, and that as a guest at the hotel, you wouldn't need to make a separate parking arrangement. We've got another question about support following the close of the convening that can be expected. Basically, we as an RMI team are here to support the work of teams at Accelerator, and so as such, we want to help the teams continue to do good work afterwards. So the facilitator will essentially check in with the team at 3 weeks, 6 weeks, and 12 weeks after the event to understand how it's going and see if there is any guidance that can be offered. We also offer several hours of consulting support, principally with your facilitator, but are happy to try to make connections with other folks who would be useful. We can talk in more detail with specific teams if there's a specific request or to understand better the follow-up support that might be available.
Great. And then someone just asked, will we make a list of all team members available before the event?
we'll be making a list of all team members available on the first day of the event. If there is a specific need for a list of team members, especially from a particular team, again, please feel free to reach out to Black Badger and to Sherri. There are a couple of teams that are still having a couple of folks sign up, and so we want to be sure to have the complete list before distributing it.
We have time for more questions if anybody would like to chat more in. We'll take those as they come.
Maybe the way we'll do that is just hold for the next 2 minutes and see if anything shows up. And if otherwise, we can dismiss our first accelerator convening a little early. All right, it looks like no big questions, a couple of very specific personal questions about your own logistic arrangements.
Someone did ask about seeing the problem statements from each team, so that is in the last few pages of the PDF that also got sent out, and I'm displaying part of it. I don't know how many pages that is. Sorry. Screen, technology. Here, I'll advance that. Oh, no. Sort of like the team list, though, a lot of the problem statements are in flux.
Yeah. So you have access to that PDF, and if you are advanced beyond the questions page, you'll see 3 or 4 pages of brief team descriptions.
I'm probably going too fast. Yes, there's 3 pages of it.
All right. Well, terrific. Thank you guys for logging on so promptly. Give you a few minutes back in your day, but we are thrilled to support you and cannot wait to see you in under 2 weeks at Sundance. All right. Thanks so much.
Oh, there is that.